Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
What's the scariest thing you've ever heard someone say? What's the scariest thing you could ever imagine hearing?
I was shot in Philadelphia in 2005 by a meth head asshole who had wandered onto my father's front porch and was yelling at my 14-year-old sister in the window and trying to force his way into the house. My sister was home alone, and she called our dad and then me, and luckily I was right down the street. I ran to my dad's house. I live in New York City and was just visiting for a week, in time to see the guy slamming the metal trash can against the front door in an attempt to knock the door in. I ran into the yard and started yelling WTF and GTFO of here and things like that, and he just turned around, reached into his pocket, pulled out what turned out to be a .380, screamed, "You're not gonna stop me, fucking die." And then he shot me twice. One broke through a rib, passed through my left lung, and came to a rest in another rib in my back. The second one hit me in the shoulder, entering just under my left clavicle. A third shot went past my head or neck and was found in the neighbor's wall across the street. So the scariest thing I've ever heard in my life was, "You're not going to stop me, fucking die." One of my favorite movies is True Romance, and there is a scene in that movie where Christopher Walken said something that has become burned in my mind after this experience with this madman. They say when you die, you tell the angels in heaven that you never saw evil so singularly personified as you did in the face of the man who killed you. The mind-shattering truth behind this statement never sank in until I almost experienced it firsthand. And to this day, I'm still not sure what was more horrifying, my own impending violent death, or the idea, based on his assertion that I was not going to stop him, that once I was dispatched, he would continue to force his way into the house and do whatever he planned on doing to my defenseless little sister.
So what happened after you were shot? Did he get in? Did you plot your divine revenge and smite him in the streets?
Dude, my neighbors saved my life and possibly my sister's too. Several neighbors called the cops, but the couple 2 houses down from my dad went above and beyond and saved my life. Pretty much everybody on the street heard the yelling prior to me getting to the house, and then a lot of people saw me get shot. And as soon as the shots were fired, 4 calls were made to 911. But the people 2 houses down started throwing things out the window at my shooter and screaming and basically risking his obviously lethal aggression in an attempt to get him to stop. These people are the real heroes, and they're saints and just beautiful people in my mind. And I would bend heaven and earth for them if they ever needed anything at all from me. I love them, and they are everything beautiful about humanity. They are the example I consider when I wonder about all the violence and brutality in the world. They redeem us all. Immediately after I was shot, I stumbled off the yard and onto the sidewalk, and in my mind I knew this person was just going to take the few steps necessary to catch up to me and shoot me in the head. The first shot would drop me, and then he would empty his gun into my prone body and head, and I would be dead right there outside my father's house and in front of my sister. But these 2 people next door distracted him, and he ran away. He was arrested 5 days later with the gun still in his possession. After 11 months, he was convicted of attempted murder, possession of a firearm by a felon, aggravated assault, felony reckless endangerment, and a bunch of lesser includeds. He got 12 to 24 years and was ordered to pay my lost wages and medical restitution to the tune of $77,000. I declined to pursue civil charges because screw it. I'll never see anything close to the existing $77,000, so why sue for a further unrealistic judgment that I'll never get a dime of? He claimed stimulant psychosis at trial in hopes of getting a mitigated sentence.
In 2006, I was at a party. The party was being held in a huge 2-story home with dozens of bedrooms and a pond-sized pool. Ridiculously large place. We were all drinking and everyone was swimming, and it had gotten late. I started wandering around the house with a girl I met trying to find a secluded room we could use. And when I got upstairs, I heard a voice from down the hall say, "Everyone has to die. Everyone needs to be killed." No one was supposed to be on the 2nd floor, so we were a bit terrified. We crept up and peeked into each room until we found a male sitting on a bed. We didn't know him and hadn't seen him at the party, and he was just sitting there staring at the wall, repeating that everyone has to die and everyone had to be killed. Needless to say, we hightailed it, scared out of our minds, We shared the story with other partygoers and came to find out it was the brother of the guy who owned the home, who was mentally off after returning from war in Iraq. Didn't make it less creepy.
I work at a mid-sized jail. Being a booking officer there, I've seen some shit, got into fights with all kinds of mentally ill people. The scariest thing I've heard was a woman that kept screaming about demons attacking her. She fought like it too. Took 4 of us to put her in the restraint chair. After we moved her to a padded, violent cell in the chair, she started speaking in a different language. She was Hispanic, and it wasn't English or Spanish. Then while I was behind her, holding onto the chair, in some deep god-awful voice she screams, "Jacob." We don't have our first names on our uniforms, and everyone uses last names. So the scariest thing I've heard is my own name.
Be 17, drinking with this girl in a storm drain. She was a real nut, claimed to hear voices and talk to spirits. She starts to crawl down one of the tunnels, takes the bottle with her, tells me to follow. I don't know why, but I followed her. She lets me get in front of her because she wants me to lead. Deep down this one tunnel now, pitch black, the light from the main chamber is a small white dot. The only other light I have is my cell phone. I started to panic because I'm a bit claustrophobic and it was really dark. At this point, we can hear rushing water from a huge drop down in the tunnel. Must be some kind of reservoir. Out of nowhere, the chick breaks the bottle against the wall. Pick up a piece of glass and start staring at it hard. In this small tunnel, in the pitch black, blocking the way to the exit since she's behind me. The way forward is blocked by a massive pit. Watching her stare at this piece of glass with only the light of my phone. She starts to concentrate on the sounds of the rushing water in front of me and goes, "Do you hear them?" "Who? You don't hear those kids down there? I think they're in danger." "No. Go in. We need to save them. They're drowning. Drop down and help them." Have to come up with something. She is delusional. "Yeah, let me get around you and I'll get help." "No, they need us, Anon. We need to go in and save them." She starts crawling towards me, trying to push me into the pit. Start to freak out. Huge wave of terror overcomes me. Lunge at the girl and crawl over her. I cut my arm on the glass she's holding. Sprint crawl to the main chamber. Jump out back onto land. Bolt home. Everybody was mad at me for leaving her in the drain, but everything turned out all right. She did end up staying at a hospital for a while, though. I don't think I've ever been more afraid. Trapped in an enclosed space with an unstable person with a weapon. I stay away from the sewers now.
I worked in a hardware store one summer when I was a teenager. These 2 normal-looking guys came in and were buying all kinds of tools. Hammer, duct tape, chains, saw blades, etc. Nothing too odd, but I was supposed to ask customers for help to improve their satisfaction or some shit. So I do, and they start asking me about how certain power tools work, how they compare to other ones, how fast this saw blade can cut, etc. I was still new to the job and honestly was a lazy bastard, so I didn't try to learn anything. Instead, I just pretend to know or say, "Hold on, my manager is better at this," and push it off on him. They buy a handful of tolls and stuff and go on their way. 3 weeks later, I saw their pictures in the news for attacking some girls and murdering them using some of those tools. My manager and I helped them put together a murder kit.
I used to attract a lot of weird attention. I was almost abducted when I was 4. A mom asked this guy what he was doing holding my hand and taking me away from a public park, and he ran off. When I was 16 to 20-ish, I got lots of people coming up to me asking me for stuff. Probably because I was homeschooled and looked incredibly naive, which I was. My favorite, though, work in a community college tutoring center. Get to know the regulars, over 30-year-old NPCs who don't understand percentages and decimal places. A giant 30-year-old guy comes in all the time, a typical player kind of guy. One night I close alone from 7:30, just me and this guy. Starts talking to me. I clearly have nothing to do, so I have to play along for like an hour. Starts talking about all the women he's with, how exhausted he is from having to sleep with a different woman every night. You know what I'm talking about, right, Anon? He comes, sits right next to me. Have to spend 15 minutes as he scrolls through his phone, showing me pictures of chubby white women in bikinis next to him. I finally get to close up. Hey, you want to hit the gym or something? Nope. Got to go home and study, say bye and walk to my car. I can tell he is going the same direction I am, but he didn't say, and I'm many paces ahead of him. Get to my car, turn around, he's in the distance. Pretends he has something to do on his phone, turns around, walks off into the darkness. Never comes into the tutoring center again.
Scariest thing I've ever heard was probably some weird hallucination or something, but here goes. In like 7th grade or so, get home from school, tired as hell. Decide to take a nap. I can't fall asleep for like an hour. Something just feels wrong. As I'm right about to fall asleep, I hear something. A voice says the word sand, clear as day. Eyes bolt open. Look around my room. Nothing. TV off. Nobody home. I wasn't asleep yet. It wasn't even a really scary voice. It was just so clear. And why sand? I don't know. I probably imagined it, but it was terrifying.
Something similar happened to me. Be sleeping. In the middle of the night, I suddenly and randomly open my eyes for 1 single second. I blink. I am laying with my face looking to the roof, you know. For that single second, I see a young girl with her face really close to me, like if she was about to kiss me or something. She says, "Caro." Open my eyes again. See nothing there. I'm not actually scared. Suddenly, everything feels really peaceful. I randomly smile. I still wonder what that was. I think it was an angel or some kind of positive thing. But what the hell is Caro?
Caro is Italian for dear. Maybe some ghost thought you were her dead Italian husband or something.
I had a similar experience, but mine was more typical sleep paralysis. It even had the stereotypical hag entity. Wake up abruptly in the middle of the night. Be face to face with an old woman with an expression of extreme hatred on her face. She looks like she's about to attack me. She slowly fades out of existence, and I'm lying there startled, wondering what the hell I just witnessed.
I knew this kid in middle school who had pale skin and red hair. I don't remember his real name, but he insisted you call him Freddy. When I knew him, he had a bowl cut and always wore horizontal striped shirts and black pants. He looked like a ventriloquist dummy or something. He had super strange mannerisms like he was Vulcan. You'd say something to him and he'd turn his head and thought like he was calculating his response. He wanted to do bad stuff, like smoking or doing drugs or committing crimes, but he was so dorky. It was like it was an experiment to him. He followed me around for a while because I smoked pot and cigarettes. One time in the middle of class, he just keeled over from his desk and collapsed on the ground. He was always being weird and doing weird things, so the teacher was kind of like, "What the hell now?" He's laying on the ground not moving for 20 minutes, and the paramedics show up. They've got all their gear out and they're examining him, and suddenly the paramedic stands up and says, "Okay, get up, there's nothing wrong with you." And Freddy just calmly gets up and looks around, blinking and looking puzzled like you might if you were trying to solve a problem. The teacher sends him to the principal's office. I didn't know what happened to him until I happened to come across his picture on the Dirty, this gossip website. Apparently, he'd been going by the name DJ Fredophile and was hooking up with minors and all messed up on drugs. I actually posted his picture to B at the time because he looked so goddamn weird, and someone who knew him replied and asked where I got the picture, because they knew him, and he'd recently died from an overdose, and that he was an okay guy, but had fetal alcohol syndrome, and his parents were screwed up or something. Pic related. It's him.
Some details changed to preserve anonymity. As if I didn't, it would be pretty easy to figure out who I am if anyone I knew saw this. When I was a kid, about 16, this dude I worked with was always a little off. I suspect he was on the spectrum, but it was subtle enough you'd only really notice it if you talked to him for a while or worked with him. I'd find him in the freezer sometimes when I'd go in to grab product to put out. He'd just be sitting there on a crate, staring at the wall, wearing a t-shirt and jeans. Not moving a muscle. 32 Fahrenheit temperature be damned. Wouldn't even look at me as I collected what I needed. This was in sharp contrast to how I'd find him staring at me while I worked. I knew for a fact he wasn't gay, as he was actually quite openly homophobic. We'd often get students from the school I went to at the time. This group of girls I recognized would come in a lot. They were all freshmen, about 14 years old. My coworker was in his 30s, I'm guessing. I never actually found out his exact age. I'd always catch him looking at them as they would shop around. One time I was working near him and looked up to see the group of girls leaving the store. You know, Anon, someday I'm going to get a piece of that ass. I looked over at him, ready to chastise this grown-ass man for lusting over a 14-year-old, when I noticed he's fingering his knife. His eyes are dead, yet laser-focused. Yeah, a real piece. It was so comically screwed up that I almost didn't believe he really just did that. But not as screwed up as this other time. We were unloading the truck one day, one of those ones with a big roller door, pick-related. My coworker breaks the dead silence to ponder out loud what it would be like to slam the door on someone's neck. He starts going on about how many slams it would take to decapitate someone and what it would look like after. He's monologuing at this point, really going into detail. A girl from the same school as me started working at the store. We weren't super close friends or anything and didn't really talk outside of work or really that much at work either. I noticed that my coworker, we're going to call him Dave from now on, takes a liking to her. Jess from now on. Jess outwardly displays no reaction, but I get the feeling she's creeped out. Dave did, after all, have the habit of silently staring at people, never breaking visual contact even when you noticed him. It's 3 a.m. one night and I'm deep into a game of Civilization. It's my day off tomorrow. I get a text from Jess. This is weird, I thought. This is literally the first time she's ever texted me. Hey, Anon, can I ask you a huge favor? Yeah, what's up? Can you come into work tomorrow? Closing shift. It's kind of my day off tomorrow. Yeah, I know, but I would really appreciate it. Why do you want me to come in? Well, I'm supposed to close alone with Dave and Desu. Anon, he scares me. I know we don't really talk, but I trust you a hell of a lot more than Dave. I see. I'll come in. Dave seemed really, really angry that he wasn't going to be closing alone with Jess. For Dave, this didn't mean yelling or throwing shit. You could just feel the anger radiating off of him. This honestly creeped me out more than anything else he did, including this next part. Jess cornered me in a secluded part of the store and quietly asked if I would drive her home. She usually walked but didn't feel safe walking home with Dave anywhere nearby. I obliged. Dave watched me as I walked her to my car. He just stood there in front of the locked door to the store as we walked away. On the drive to her place, I noticed a car that had been behind us for a little too long. I made 3 right turns and the car didn't follow, but once I got back on the correct route, it reappeared. I eventually dropped Jess off, and just before she shut the door, I told her to text me if she noticed anything strange. One night at about 2 a.m., I got a knock at my door. My mother was out of town, and it was just me in the house. I'm already a little tense. Knocks late at night are never anything good, and this one sure wasn't. This psycho. Dave is standing outside my door, staring straight at the peephole. Hell no, I was not about to answer it. I ran to my mum's room to grab a gun, purely on instinct, but he was gone when I got back. I watched TV the rest of the night with an AR-15 in my lap. Dave never showed back up to work. He did a lot more creepy shit than what I wrote here, but a lot of it is boring if you weren't there with full context and looking through the lens of a 16-year-old. I've yet to meet anyone who exudes such wrongness.
Maybe not creepy, but a very, very ex-dude named Frank from San Diego in the 90s comes to mind. He worked nights in a bad downtown hotel. Friendly, funny, and read tarot at my favorite coffee shop. Watched him drinking a coffee, and he suddenly walks over and sits next to me. I think you should go to the Mutual Friends Band concert instead of other Mutual Friends party. Trust me. He gets back up, and though I agree, has hairs standing up on my arms. See him at a concert. He buys me a whiskey, then another. Trust me, you need it. Get drunk, decide to go check out the party after the concert. Entire building is in flames. 2 mutuals dead, candles tipped over, maybe melting heroin. See Frank the next day. He is relieved. Says he dreamed it would happen. He disappears about a year later. The seedy residential hotel he worked at has staff murders, police raids. Guy who lived there said he calmed people down a lot. A few weeks before he poofs, he says he'll see me in Europe someday. I had a semester abroad that summer in Prague, did not see him, considered it a miss. Mutuals talk about weird stuff he predicted. Girl who dated him says the cards were a cover-up. He was psychic. They broke up because he told her she would make some bad decisions. He would rather love her and leave before it went south. He told her all kinds of secrets about us all. Things we told no one. Always had a reason for telling her. We agree we all miss him. See an article about a guy in the woods in North California. Picture is him, with a beard, backpack, and a smile. Unnamed man wanted for unlicensed fortune-telling. Life goes on, merry kids. At a ruined pub in Budapest with my husband 5 years ago. Guy sits next to me. Slides me a whiskey. Husband a gin and tonic. It's Frank. I told you we'd see each other in Europe. Introduce him to my husband. Tell him the gang misses him. He hasn't changed, aged. He says, see you in a better place, when we hug goodbye. Hairs on arm raised. Feel sad.
Be 18. Live in a third world country. Bad things happen in broad daylight. Waiting to get on a bus out of my city alone for the first time. Reading a book by Frederick Forsyth. Feel a tap on my shoulder. Some Minecraft YouTuber-looking guy tells me he loves Nietzsche. Get creeped out. Remember what my mom told me about Christians. Tell him it's a different Friedrich. He says, oh, okay. He waits for the bus and stares at me. Get on my bus. It's his bus, too. He sits a few rows behind me. I catch him staring at me. Get scared. Bus makes a stop in a city before mine. Guy gets off, but before that, he gives me a folded piece of paper. Open it. It's a bunch of film and book recommendations. Everything from Borges to Disney's Inside Out. Weird dude. He looked a bit like Pick-related.
I worked at Whole Foods when I was 18 years old. Had a coworker, 16 years old. We get along because I'm into alien conspiracy, and he's into murder mysteries. We hung out for a couple days. He starts to let on that he's also interested in the occult. He admits to me that he's really big on serial killer stuff. We normally talked about Aleister Crowley and all the conspiracies alien and occult surrounding him. He owned a car seat that belonged to some famous murderer. I forgot the name. Seat was where the victims sat when picking them up from what he told me. I always played it off as awesome and cool, so he would admit more. Smart enough to not get in a car with him or be alone with him. While he was bagging someone's groceries, he dropped a small cake on the floor. Proceeds to eat cake off ground in front of everyone. He explains that he's eaten stuff out of the trash before. One day during lunch, we bought food at a register. Dude pulls out his wallet. There's orange hair inside the main pocket. He has brown hair. He sees me looking, oh, that's my roommate's hair. They gave it to me in exchange for a book. I played it off. Then Bit literally didn't talk to him ever again after that day. Shit was getting really weird with the kid. I swear he was a serial killer in the making.
Be me, good hard worker, man. Do nothing but focus on projects in my career. Never date outside of work because attempts sucked. Automatically end up in pseudo-relationships at work that cross boundaries in both directions because I am a dumbass. Now my brain is broken. All that good hard worker man career focus for nothing. Get laid fine outside of work but no luck finding a real connection. Life sucks now. I feel like my soul left me and my drive is gone and I'm just in limbo waiting to die. Pain.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check out the Odyssey page in the description for a second archive of the channel's videos.
There's also a Rumble archive as a backup.